All right. Happy Wednesday. It's that favorite time of Wednesday, the Living a Purposeful Lifestyle show. We are starting a little early today, but I am so excited to introduce our guest today. Today, I have an ERP specialist, expert, someone I highly respect in that field. He has started his own group, WBSRocks, which is a group of professionals that get together and really lean on each other for expertise in amazing ways, and just a phenomenal LinkedIn contributor. So, Sam Gupta, welcome to the show. So happy to have you today.
I'm so excited to be here, Jason, and I'm especially thrilled with the music that you have in your show. I'm super pumped, and with my kind of energy, I mean, it's going to be a marriage made in heaven, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So let's just get right into it. I know we got a lot of ground to cover. So, one of the things that I kind of met you on accident, but the one thing that I've really come to appreciate is your diverse understanding of a wide ranging of businesses, whether it be warehouses to small enterprise to small mom and pop shops you just have a wide range of business acumen and experience. And before we really get into ERP, where did that come from? So tell me a little bit about your past and where did you really draw on some of that experience to learn about these different businesses?
Yeah, happy to. And I'm going to keep it super brief right now, and then we can dig deeper as we need. Otherwise, that story is going to be too long, I guess.
I guess.
So, yeah, I grew up in the very manufacturing and distribution-centric environment. So when we were 5, 6, 8, at that time, we were doing a lot more work supporting our family business. And in our family, there is a saying, if you cannot be on the shop floor just because you are too little, what you can do is you can count money. In those days, we didn't really have the digital money or the credit card. So we had to count a lot of cash overall. So my first job, as I like to define, was really counting the money. And that transitioned or manifested into the other responsibilities that was accounting. And then, all through manufacturing. So we were doing a lot more manufacturing. By the time I went to my college, oh my goodness, I knew too much about the business. But then, as like any other kid, I simply wanted to run away from my family just because I thought I was way cooler than them, to be honest. So I wanted to sort of, find my own path. And that's what led me to, in this engineering and the software kind of world, was super fascinated, excited about the IT and software, just because the kind of power it could actually bring to the business. I had the business insight, and I wanted to marry it with the software. So, once I got to the university, of the itch of the entrepreneurship was always in me. So I was always trying different ideas. So I tried a bunch of ideas during my university days. But then finally, what ended up happening is, how the early stage startups are. And we could not see ourselves feeding our family. And because of that, I decided that, this is not the best thing for me to do at this point of time. So what I decided to do is I went into the Fortune 500 consulting. And my role there was really to put into any of the broken digital transformation. I was that guy. Okay. So if they have a problem, I'll be called, just because, because of my family background, just because of, the kind of conversations that we had in the family, I just knew too much about the business, the technology, and it was very hard to find that guy who could talk to everybody, on the shop floor, who could understand everybody's language and who could fix the issues. Just nobody has that kind of insight, the cross-functional insight that is going to be required in these digital transformation engagement. So that journey gave me a lot of perspective, but still the itch of entrepreneurship was always in me. So after doing that for roughly 10, 12 years, I started exploring some of the ideas. And one thing that I learned from this journey is probably creating a business around the digital transformation, as you know how competitive that could be, and we have some big brands there. So it's going to be really hard. So what I wanted to do is I again wanted to run after every shiny object present out there. So I went after every single idea you can possibly imagine. So I explored startups in the med tech space. I explored startup in the real estate tech space, martech, fintech, you name it. Too many businesses, too many failures. But what that gave me is really the focus, which is what is needed to start a business to run a business. So after doing that, I found that, roughly around 2016, 2017, my core was really the manufacturing distribution. My core was really digital transformation. What can I do to marry them together? What can I do to build a business around that? So that was the sort of birth of the ElevatIQ, as well as the community. As you have the WBSRocks, they are part of the same umbrella. The WBSRocks is slightly more community-centric initiative where we want to just make it slightly more educational. We have several different initiatives there. As far as your podcast goes, we have very big influencers joining us. We are super blessed to have them as part of our show, that they share insight with us. Then we have Clubhouse communities. You are part of our happy hour. And then Twitter chat. So we have so many different initiatives. From the business perspective, we are really the ERP and digital transformation company, and we get involved in many different engagements. And majority of those engagements are going to be either, if the businesses don't know how to procure a software, ERP software, because the software contracts are tricky to work with. And sometimes, even if you're buying, let's say, the $1,000 software, sometimes the toll charges could be hundreds and thousands of dollars. And you would not know unless you understand how to read the software contracts. And it's not going to be just the understanding the legal, language. It's also going to be what are going to be the technical implications. And technical implications could be as simple as, let's say, storing your invoices, storing your documents on a server. And that, you need to measure the server capacity. You need to forecast your growth plans. And if you don't understand your growth plans, and if you're not aligning the technical architecture with this, then you could be in real trouble. So basically, we get involved in a lot of different digital transformation engagement. It could be just the procurement, fixing the existing systems, integrating existing systems, or if somebody is doing net new implementation, obviously we can do that as well. So we have end-to-end capabilities. As far as the business system goes, we don't necessarily get into the hardware side of things, only the software as well as the business systems. Does that give you enough background?
Yeah. And so, I want to kind of rewind. So we're going to kind of take some snippets out of there. So one of the things I think you talked about was because of that time working within the family business and everything else, you gained a lot of experience in all the different finance, the operations, the procurement, the management piece. It's one of the things that the purpose of this show is to help people find a purposeful meaning in their work and in their careers. And what I would tell you is that I think that we had Joy Banfield was on the show last week, and we talked about how she took on projects that really weren't in her wheelhouse, but she was willing to step up and say, hey, I'll go and do that. So Sam, talk a little bit about the importance of how that plays out. And I'm sure you can give us a story of working with other people where people who have that wide range of understanding makes your job easier, right? So when you go into companies where there's silos, for instance, right? That makes implementing software and building a enterprise architecture that you talk about that much harder, right? Because then, the operations don't speak marketing and marketing doesn't speak finance. And then everyone's got their own agendas. And often what gets lost in all those silos is the company agenda, which should be what everyone is focused on, right?
Yep.
So I want you to kind of talk a little bit about, in your experience with good companies versus companies that struggle, and the correlation between with silos versus people have a broad understanding of the overall business.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to take story from this morning, to be honest. Okay, and it's going to be a super simple story that your listeners can follow, because if we get into slightly more complex manufacturing, some people might not be familiar with this. So this is a very simple business. They sell juices. Okay, so they are really the food manufacturing business. They have a lot of different retail outlets. So obviously, as part of the retail outlet, they are going to have a bunch of POSs. And if your listeners are not familiar with what a point of sale system is, that's going to be a system that is typically in any of the convenience store or any of the retail store. And then they have the e-commerce outlet, and they are using Shopify in this specific instance. for their e-commerce outlet. Obviously, if the customers are going to buy from either web, again, this is the scenario of more of the consumer packaged goods, where they are selling through different retail outlets. They are selling through e-commerce. As well as I think they are in some of the wholesale store as well. So they have this architecture right now. Their POSs are not necessarily talking to the e-commerce. Their e-commerce is not necessarily talking to, and they have this tiny MRP system is what I like to define. And there is a lot of debate around what an ERP system truly is. ERP system is probably going to have all of the operational backbone that you are going to require from the system perspective. In this specific instance, they are using 3 or 4 different modules or add-ons that they have got to provide the kind of functionality that an ERP system is going to have. So they have one tool for accounting, they have one for sort of the operations that is just an add-on on top of that. They have one for shipping, and again, these tools are slightly I would say thicker is how I like to define, as opposed to just a very thin tool that is using a very tiny functionality in a larger ERP system. So obviously, the problem right now that they have in the business is, they have too much admin effort that they need to spend, because as soon as you have let's say you have the retail store. Now, when the retail in the retail store, when the customer is walking in, they don't necessarily have a sense of inventory. They don't have a sense of inventory that is centralized. Now, the customer, when they are placing the order in these POS systems, they don't necessarily know, what is the real availability of this product, and they need to know that. Okay, as a business, they really need to have this visibility. Now, since these systems are siloed, they are not going to have visibility in the inventory, and then the systems are not necessarily connected. So what they need to do is, end of the day, and I'm pretty sure, Jason, you can relate with this because you are in the convenience industry. So majority of the retail functions or the stores, the way they work is they are going to take the file from the POS system at the end of the day, and they are going to send to the backend team or the operational team. Sometimes they might consume using a feed, and what they are going to do is they are going to read this file, punch it in some sort of MRP system or ERP system, whatever you have from the operational backbone perspective, and that's how typically the process works. In this particular case, they are manually entering this data. Okay, so your retail systems are disconnected from your operational system. Your operational systems are disconnected from your Shopify, which is the e-commerce platform that they are using. So obviously, you don't really have the sense of visibility in terms of the inventory. Inventory is going to be the core of your business when you are a product-centric business. You cannot plan. You don't know the cost of your product that you are selling. So you don't know what your true margins are. You don't know why your competitors are cheaper than you. Again, because you don't have sense of the cost, right? So
I'm having visions in my mind of Marcus. Marcus Lemonis has this show called The Prophet, and you see it so many times on his show where he goes in and they have no concept of what they have on hand for raw goods or finished goods, or they just don't know what their inventory is. And I'm like, how do you run a business and not know what your inventory is, and how can you make sure that you got what you need, enough of what you need, and not too much of what you don't need?
Yeah, exactly. And also from the customer experience perspective, if you really think from the customer perspective, and I try to think of more of the troublemaker. Let's say if I really want to give trouble to a business, I mean, if I know that their systems are siloed, I can probably do that just to have some fun, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to order the same product from the Shopify, and then I'm going to come back and then going to check the price and all sort of hacks. Sometimes what you can do using this exercise, a lot of customers do this, okay? And again, that's a financial loophole if you really think about it. It is called a practice. It's the double dipping practice, right? So basically, you check the product at one place, then you are going to other place. You are using the credit card since you don't necessarily have the centralized control. You are not necessarily paying for the product. When you buy, then you are probably going to return, and then as the return, you might get the product for free. So there could be a lot of loopholes overall when your systems are not going to be connected. So this is, again, from the customer perspective, let's say if they get, let's say, the wrong product, they order something, they are getting something else, because, things could fall off when you are ordering there. And then your backend team is, either they are misinterpreting it, or when they are punching the order, probably it didn't turn out to be the same. So there could be so many problems from the customer experience perspective.
Yeah, and so, we talk a little bit about, why it's so important to get all these systems talking. So let's talk next. In my mind, we've talked about why, right? So the reason why we want ERP or enterprise system is so that every system is talking and functioning in harmony versus on its own. And then, you're saving labor, you're saving headaches, all that stuff. When you start talking about all that manual entry, I start thinking in my mind of all the mistakes and just the cost involved with having humans take data from one system and enter it into another because you don't have the bridge to make them work together. So we talked about the reason why. So next I want to talk about selection. So selection in my mind has got to be from an outsider, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this as I was preparing for this and really studying about it. In my mind, selection is the most important step, because if you pick the wrong software, you could have the best implementation, but if you have the wrong software, you're not going to solve your problems. So can we talk about selection and some tips that you might have someone who's really thinking about potentially looking at doing this, like why is selection so important and what are some tips as far as selection go?
Yeah, so let's talk about what really a selection is. And before that, I think we need to talk about what an ERP is, right? Because everybody is going to have their own sort of understanding of ERP and what makes ERP so difficult. And one of the things that they used to talk when I was in my management school is that, the sense of invisibility. And that sense of R&D aspect that you have in case of software, that's what makes a software super difficult. You can call the entire system as ERP, even though it is your entire business, if you think about it. Okay, it is the entire brain of your business. So you are looking at your entire business from the system perspective, and you are saying, hey, ERP is not doing this. That's your entire business. Okay, ERP is not doing, so you need to go deeper into that. Okay, if ERP is not, what specific functionality of ERP is not doing that? Now let's talk about selection, right? So going back again to the management school. So in there, they used to talk about buy versus build philosophy, and that's the management philosophy. It has nothing to do with ERP as such. This applies to your manufacturing as well. So you have two choices from the management perspective. You can either buy it or build it internally. And typically the driver for that is going to be whether you have internal capabilities or you don't have internal capabilities. That's how you decide from the leadership perspective, from the management perspective, whether you want to procure something or you want to build it yourself. In case of ERP is a product. Okay. We need to agree on this. If ERP is not supposed to be the build, and when you buy a product, you want to buy a complete product that is going to work for your business. If it is not going to work for your business, because as we all know, each business is unique. If each business is unique, ERP needs or the digital transformation needs for each business is going to be equally unique. Okay, so one thing that you need to be looking at is, okay, typically when we look at the SMB space, every startup out there, they start the way they sell their product, the way they create their processes, the way they have their offerings. It's all going to be all over the place because that's the nature of the business. We all are small business owners. I mean, my business, if I try to install ERP right now, it's going to be a nightmare because the business is not not streamlined to an extent where it should be streamlined. And any system, any technology, whether it is manufacturing technology, that requires some sort of a standardization. You need to standardize yourself to an industry because those are the industry. And the more you standardize, the more you are going to lower the cost of the development. If you are going to say that, I have 20 different ERP systems and none of them work for my business, the chances are there is nothing wrong with the product. It is probably your business that has the problem. So first you need to think about, okay, what can I do to standardize? What can I do?
Can I stop you for 1 second? I think you said something very powerful there, and I don't want it to get lost. And that is, if you look at 20 products and you say none of them are right for my business, perhaps you need to look in the mirror and say maybe there are structural or operationally how I have my company set up problems versus all this software is bad. So go ahead. I just wanted to call that out because I think that that's a very strong statement that, it's just a great, I think that's a great statement is that, there's probably not 20 bad products. It's probably more of a case of you need to really think through how you're operating the company. So go ahead.
And I'm actually going to build on that, and I'm actually going to make one more anecdote that I typically see in my space. So typically what people see is the process is their secret sauce. And this is the misunderstanding that majority of the SME businesses make and have. Okay, your process is never going to be your competitive advantage. It's going to be your customer service, the way you serve your customers. It's going to be the overall bundle that you have around your products, right? The experience that you are providing to your customers, that is going to be your competitive advantage. It is never going to be an ERP system. If you look at some of the bigger businesses, for example, $100 million business, they will never ever think about building their own ERP system. Because they have gone through the process, they have gone through at least 5 different projects, lost $5 to $10 million in the digital transformation initiatives. They have run the risk of losing their complete business just because of one digital transformation initiative. Finally realized that, you know what, I'm not good at this. I'm good at manufacturing. I'm good at distribution. I'm good at retail. I'm going to hire an expert who understands how to develop a software or the ERP system. So that's another thing. There is a misunderstanding.
It's so smart because there's a book out there. It's called Lunch with, what's the lady's name? She started a company. Okay, I wish I could remember her name. I want to say it's Kate, but basically she started a company because she was working in a medical billing company that basically companies. Hospitals would hire them. They would create bills, send it out to the customers, and it was a train wreck. And she's like, this is ridiculous. I could do better. So she started her own company, built it up. They were kicking butt, taking names, and she let a bunch of people talk her into getting into other forms of mass mail, meaning, we will hire you to produce this marketing campaign and send it out. Well, that meant they had to buy new equipment, they had to buy all this, and most importantly, they had to build this IT infrastructure. So they went out and they hired all these IT, and she burnt through like $3 million that she had kind of saved up for the company and burnt through it. Their profits plummeted, and they were just spending tons of cash on this. And so she basically made the hard decision of letting those IT people go. She knew they weren't happy because they weren't doing the kind of work they wanted to be doing. And in the end, what it really taught me in that moment was focus on the core of the business. My business is convenience. We do car wash. We sell candy bars. We sell chips. We sell vices, right? And we take good care of our customer. We shouldn't be spending a ton of energy on hiring all these IT people to try to build these infrastructures ourselves. There's way too many companies that's what they're good at. That's what they were built to do, is to build software for convenience. We are far better off to go spend the money and buy something that has been made and put it to work. And I think that you said it best when you said, focus on what the core of the business is and why the business was founded, and leave the expertise of some of this other stuff to companies that's what they were founded to do, right?
Yep. And I'm actually going to add some more to that. So in our business, I mean, as you know, and one thing that I did not touch about my background is I have very deep programming background, and that's why I can understand technology at a far deeper level. I can understand business at a far deeper level just because of my background, right? So some of the software that I have personally been involved or written, they are now with Google. So obviously I was very good at, whatever I did. But for my own company, to be honest, even though we are a technology company, we are a software company, I will never personally write a single line of code. Okay. The reason for our own business, for our own processes, because we know that whatever we need, there is a product out there that can do the job. It's not worth writing the software that already exists. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It introduces so much of risk to the business that is not worth taking. So if the technology companies are thinking that, you are just a manufacturer, you are a distributor, you don't know how software works. Software is not supposed to be easy. If you're thinking that hardware is easy, difficult, and software is easy, that's not the case. Just because a guy who has a laptop, they can write a piece of program, does not mean that is going to scale at the enterprise level. The enterprise level, the software needs are very different. The software is very different. The financial control that you need in the software is very different. That requires you to understand a lot of business and operational processes, supply chain planning, technology, in deep detail. There is.
Do you see a lot of this? And the reason I'm asking you is because I think this has got to be something you see. Company A, middle-sized company, they're not large scale, right? But maybe they started as mom and pop, and over time, and then they build a piece of software for part of their business or whatever. Then let's just use a convenience store as a chain as an example, right? So they started off as a 3 or 4 store chain. Next thing you know, they got 15 stores. So they're like, man, we got to start having a little bit of organization for this, that, and the other. So they build their own thing. They build this thing. Next thing you know, they look up, it's 10 years later, and now they got 100 stores. And now this archaic system that they built and have spent very little money to upkeep is now, it's 15 years old. The computers running it are slow. It's no longer meeting the needs of the business. And now all of a sudden, there's not been any upkeep with that. And therefore, now they've got a new implementation they have to do that's way more expensive than if they would have went to find something that was going to be able to grow with them and be upgraded. And then you spread that cost over 10 years and you don't have this sticker shock of, okay, we can get this done, but it's going to cost you $750,000 to $1 million to do this. Do you see a lot of that where that happened, where people built something, that they thought was going to serve the needs of the business, and it did at the time, but they grew out of it?
Right. So I see a lot of stories, and I'm actually going to tell you a very interesting story, and that is around the software and how actually software drives your business practices. And in general, as I mentioned, when we come across these small businesses, and this specific story is of a distributor. They were doing a lot of, the electrical and electronics distribution. That's going to be your laptops of the world, keyboards and mice of the world is what they were selling. Now they figured that, the standardized software that exists in the market, they are not going to be fit for them because they have a very unique business. Now, I don't know a retail or distribution business that is going to be unique. There is no way in the world. I just don't know. Okay, it's a pure distribution. You are picking one stuff from one place and you are sending it to somebody else. What is unique in that? You tell me. There's nothing unique in that. Okay, so what these guys did to find very uniqueness in the business, they were doing their invoice before sales order was captured in the system. And this we see time after time. Number one, they have the business wrong, fundamentally wrong. That is not acceptable by the accounting principles, if you really think about it, right? Okay, nobody was really auditing the business. I know you have survived for 10 years, 15 years. Nobody cares. You are a very small shop, But based on that, what you are doing is you are building your culture. Because the people who are going to be there for 15 years, they are going to say, you know what? I've done this.
This is how we've always done it. We've always done it this way.
This is my business. Now you're trying to change me. You are fancy consultant. So this actually builds your culture, right? And this actually drives the process. When you are going to buy a newer system, your processes, your habits, your culture, everything is going to be driven by those bad practices, bad habits that you had. Those should have been fixed 15 years back. If you looked at your business and yourself in the mirror, the way we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation, to streamline your business, simplify your business. Your business is super simple. If you are a retailer, you are a distributor, you are a manufacturer, you can be very simple. It's up to you whether you want to over complicate it or you want to simplify it. And this is why your software vendors can really help you, because they work with hundreds and hundreds of businesses. There's no way a business can scale without an ERP software or some sort of digital transformation initiative, whether you are going to do this today or you are going to do it tomorrow. One thing they are really good at is going across the businesses and trying to find, okay, what are the best practices and how can I design the software around that? So if you have a really good consultant, then what they can do is they can teach you how to do business right. The problem always with these transformation is, the companies need to know how to streamline their processes. That is always the challenge. And one way to learn is by looking at the software that exists. And going back to the same example again, if you have 20 software in the marketplace and those 20 software, they don't feel fit for your business, compare why those software are not fit. What is so unique about the process? How come other businesses are able to do this? Okay, and you need to ask your consultant. Ask why until you get the answer. If they say that no, your business is really unique, and maybe something is unique about your business, but dig deeper. You need to find, okay, what are your competitors doing? So the best way to find that is going to be just talk to your software vendors and run that selection process. Now, going back to your selection is what we were talking about in the conversation. Number one, you are buying a product. Always. That's the mindset that you need to think about when you are thinking about an ERP system. Okay, you are buying product that is going to work for your business. So obviously you need to marry these together, your business processes and the capabilities of the software. You need to do very deep reflection, and that's a thinking process. If you don't do the thinking process, it's going to be garbage in and garbage out.
That's right.
Okay, it doesn't matter which ERP system or the whether you do it internally, externally. It's the fundamental of design. It's the fundamental of system design. Okay, so if you think the system, if you can draw your architecture on paper, it's like building your house or plant or factory or whatever. Okay, one of the things that is different between the developing world or the developed world is, if you look at the developed world, every house is well designed, the city is well designed. But if you look at the developing world, there's no planning. So if you can design that, the reason why the developed countries are better is because they have done a lot of planning overall in identifying different components and the role each of the components are going to play, and what are going to be the rules or governing principles that are going to be driving the overall ecosystem. In your case, even though the ERP is individual, it could be just 3 letters for you, but in your case, it's going to be the entire ecosystem which you have no clue on. So again, wow. Research is what I like to talk about.
Yeah, and so a couple of things, man. You said a lot there, so I want to kind of call out a few things. One, I loved how you said that if you're in a retail business, you're not running a unique business. You may sell some unique products, but at the end of the day, you're still either making the products and selling them, or you are buying the products from a source and putting them and marking them up and selling them to make a profit. Like retail is very simple. Same thing with manufacturing. You're either making a product and then you're taking raw products, making it into a finished product, and you're selling it to someone else. I loved how you said that you're if you think that your business is so unique that you have to do all these crazy things, there's probably something wrong there. And I think the reason why I found that very, very telling was because you hear that a lot. I hear that a lot, even you see a lot on this platform. And when you hear people talk, is that, well, we have a unique retail, and they're like, unique retail. What is the heck is that? That's, it's like saying you have a unique gas station. Like, dude, it's the same 3 grades of gas we've been selling for 50 years. Like you're not selling unique gas. And so, I found that very telling. I also loved how you talked about if you have major problems with how your system or how you run your business, I don't care what system you buy, you can implement the best system on the planet. Yeah. If you do not have good habits, meaning we enter things at the right time, we enter invoices when we receive the product, we enter our cash daily, we check our safes, we do all these checks and balances as we go, and we have good business systems set into place and that we utilize the software to capture, it doesn't matter. And so I think that I've seen this go wrong in my experience over the 25 years, and that is people go and it's kind of like buying a fancy new car and putting a 16-year-old behind the wheel, right? Like, what the hell are you doing? Why would you give a 16-year-old a Lamborghini, right? Like, what do you expect them to do? That thing's going to end up in the ditch in the first 2 weeks, right? So I really love your analogy there as far as, we can find and help businesses find a great solution. But one, they have to be willing to be honest and open about their systems, and then researching. So getting back to this evolution. So you're talking about selection, and then you talked about research, and never forgetting that I'm buying a product, and that when you buy a product, just like in your personal life, quality, and you get what you pay for. So if you want to go on the cheap, yep, you may see some money up front, but you're going to pay more in the long run because keeping it updated and all the other things. And that's what I find with software is that if you have to be really careful and look at the long-term cost of ownership, right? Because there are certain software that are geared to where, sure, they'll get it in there for you up front and they'll get you rolling, right? But then what you don't get is that if you're not paying attention, you don't get all those cost of upgrades and all the, when you come back in 2 years and go, I need this tweaked or I need this changed, now they're going to charge you a small fortune. Whereas maybe if you went with a little bit higher priced solution, then that's kind of built in. So I think you have to be really cautious about when you're comparing that you really are looking at apples to apples and oranges to oranges, right?
Yes, and in fact, let me see. I'm gonna add some more, colors there overall, in terms of this process. So when you are actually going to be doing the reflection process with respect to the understanding of your business, you are going to be understanding a lot about your business overall. In terms of why you are not competitive in the market. So this exercise is not only going to help you from your ERP implementation, it's going to help you in understanding your own process and also in terms of position. So the way, typically the digital transformation or ERP implementations are, people think of them as sort of the operational improvements. Okay, they are very rarely thought of as either the customer service improvement or why am I not competitive in the marketplace? Give me an answer for that. You are not competitive because the answer really lies in those four walls, to be honest. And you really need to get deeper. You need to get that data on your fingertips to be able to understand what is happening in your process. Why are you so important? So when you talk to, and again, I think on your comment about cheap versus the expensive, I don't think it matters whether you are going for cheap or expensive. They could be equally terrible.
That's right.
Okay, because what you need to do is you really need to understand these things deeply yourself so that you can work with somebody who knows what they are doing. And if you're not willing to spend that time and put some work there, and if you're going to think that, you know what, I'm hiring a vendor, I'm hiring a consultant, I'm buying this product, and why am I paying to them? They should be doing all of that themselves. This is a mutual process. That's almost like wedding. Okay, it's almost like creating a new company inside your company. So you need to embrace that it does require time. It does require some effort from your side as well. Do as much research as you can, because that is actually going to help you understand your business. It is not only going to fix your operational problems that you might have, but it is going to help you in understanding your business.
Yeah, and so I agree with you 100%. So you've done the research, you've worked with Sam and you've really pulled back the curtains, and you're like, all right, we're going to go with solution C. Sam, kind of what happens then? So now the company has kind of decided. What? Talk to me about the implementation, because I got to believe you've got a great story of an implementation nightmare, right? Like there's got to be a good story. You've done this long enough. I got to believe you could tell us a good story to kind of close out the show on an implementation nightmare, and then the learnings from that.
So as much as I, hate to talk about these stories because they are painful, we are all small business owners. It's not fun to talk about these stories, to be honest. And I don't want to, frighten anybody in terms of these stories. But one of these stories that I'm going to be talking about is going to be of a distributor again. And in this particular case, what this distributor tried to do is they tried to mimic their existing ERP system that they had to the new one. So basically what they were trying to do is they were trying to recreate the ERP system. Okay. The mistake that they did, and by the way, this was like $1 million spent, $2 million spent in just recreating the screens, recreating the look and feel, because they felt that, hey, you know what? I've got my people here. They have tendency to enter data in a certain way. Okay. Now, if I change their habits, then what is going to happen? They're not going to like it. They're going to complain it. So how about I change the software? Now, they don't understand the risk it takes in writing every single line of code. Okay, the risk that you are going to have is going to be tremendous. You cannot match that by simply training your people. So in this particular case, they spent roughly $1 million, $2 million in the spend. They were roughly what, $20-30 million company, or probably more. They were slightly bigger, right? So, but they could not really pull off this product. It never worked. They spent so much time in the technical debugging, in the errors, in the IT infrastructure. Okay, every time the issue was in the company, it was related to IT.
Wow.
Okay, and by the way, Missy, it's kind of sad. I really don't like to talk about this when the business is no longer, they are not in the business. Just because, as you know, as a retailer, distributor, manufacturer, you don't have like 50% margin in your business. You cannot afford to make $1 million mistake. There's no way.
No, those are, you make those and then you haven't solved your problem. Next thing you know, now you got even bigger problems.
Yeah.
So, wow. So, the thing of it is that it's interesting there, the company, that's a great example of a company saying, oh, we've got it all figured out. We just need a new, faster computer. And it's like, that's not your problem. And, it goes back to it's a really simple adage that I learned a long time ago when I first got into the business world. That is, a problem well defined is half solved, right? So often, and I got to believe you see this a lot with you, it's easy to say, well, it's the software's fault. The software's old or the software's no good. That's why we have this problem. When so often, as you have said time and time again today, and the thing that I'm taking away from our conversation is, it's not the software, it is the people driving the software. So you can have the best, like we talked about the car, you can have the best and shiniest car with the horsepower and everything else, right? Like if you put me in a NASCAR, you could have the winning car for the Daytona 500. You put me in the car, we ain't winning the 500, man. I'm telling you, because I'm either going to be in the wall, I'm going to be in the infield, whatever. But we can have the best car, we can have the shiniest, prettiest, best thing, but in the wrong hands, it's useless. So I think that, man, you've shed so much light on this process, and one of the reasons I like talking to you about this is because you're so passionate about it, Sam. And I want to give you a chance before we close the show. Like, if someone is frustrated with how their business is running, or maybe they see the need for looking at how can software help them streamline processes and make their business run better. What's a good way to get a hold of you? Obviously, they can get a hold of you here on LinkedIn. Sam Gupta is easy to find. Are there other ways that we can refer them on how they can get a hold of you, Sam?
It's easy. I mean, the best way is really the LinkedIn and social media. And as you know, I'm super popular, on LinkedIn, the Twitter, easy to find. Sam, SAM, last name. And the company name is ElevatIQ. There is no E at the end, so it's going to be ElevatIQ. If you fill the contact form, one of my team member is going to redirect you to me. And the same goes for WBSRocks as well. It's very simple URL. It's WBS.ROCKS. And again, we have a contact form there as well.
Yeah, and I would highly encourage anyone that's looking. I'm telling you, you can't go wrong with Sam. He is going to get you in the right direction of what you need to do. Sam, I really appreciate you being here today. Before you go, I always ask my guest kind of as a parting shot, for somebody out there that's really, maybe they're down, maybe they've lost a job, maybe they are struggling to find their way. What is some advice you can give them as far as finding your passion? Because when I think about passion, there's no better person that comes to mind than you. What are some advice on finding their purpose and really homing in on what they were born to do?
Yeah, so one of the things that the common problems that I see in a lot of people who are either struggling to get a job or they are struggling with their businesses. One of the key foundation overall in terms of the business, it's always going to be relationships. Everything is built around people and relationships. If you are not getting a job, most likely you don't have enough network. Most likely enough people don't know you. So make sure you are visible. We are living in the world of social media, where you can build your personal brand, where you can help people in a lot of different ways. And when you are actually going to help somebody, it will come back to you. It might take slightly longer, but it'll come back to you. So this is the easiest way to help somebody in either, let's say if you're working with the salesperson, just help them with an intro. If you have a person who's looking for a job, just help them with your job. And this is going to be your way of building the network, building the relationships in the community. Just keep doing that, and you will be surprised how much is going to come back to you. Then you don't have to put as much effort in interviewing, because people are going to find you, because they already know you, because you are visible.
Yeah, I love that. So utilizing, building a personal brand, and finding purpose by helping others. I love it. So Sam, it's been great, man. I almost think we could have went for another 45 minutes. I wish you much success and all you're doing, and I'm always in your corner. So for everyone watching at home, we really, really appreciate you tuning in today. We do this again next Wednesday. We'll be back at our normal start time of 3 p.m. Looking forward to that. Until then, we're signing off. Have a great rest of the week, and go be awesome and live with purpose.